Well, it's the day before Halloween. It's the final review in my retro series, and I said there would be one movie that I review that's not technically a horror movie, and yeah, this is it, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The Rocky Horror Picture Show focuses on a recently engaged couple after they just meet at a wedding, I don't know, named Brad and Janet. Brad's played by Barry Bostwick, and Janet's played by Susan Sarandon. So as they're driving, they get a flat tire in the middle of the rain. They find this castle, and all they want to do is use the phone. But they come across Dr. Frankenfurter, played by Tim Curry, and his, I don't know, I guess entourage of Transylvanians, as they have some ceremony. Dr. Frankenfurter has this supposedly Frankenstein monster named Rocky. And to be honest, from there on out, the plot doesn't matter. It does not matter one bit because it's hard to follow. And I don't know, it's Rocky Horror Picture Show is a very weird movie to talk about because this movie's widely known. It spawned all these crazy midnight showings that are awesome, by the way. Everyone talks about this movie. They remember the songs. They go to these midnight screenings dressed as characters. There's a shadow cast in front of the movie that acts out the movie. Everyone talks about the midnight screenings. But when was the last time someone has actually talked about the movie itself? Taking the midnight screenings out of context and everything that is associated with them, when was the last time anybody actually looked at the Rocky Horror Picture Show and looked at the movie itself and not all the shit that came because of it? Well, I mean, it is the 40th anniversary of the film, so I guess there's no better time than now to review it. And basically, I saw this movie first through the midnight screenings. I even made a video where I talked about my experiences through the midnight screenings. That was about last year in February. You can take a look at that video. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. But I figured, you know what? Why don't I actually look at the movie itself? Take the midnight screenings out. How does the movie hold up? It's hard to say because there are some good elements to it, really good elements, but it's kind of a mess, honestly. Let's get into the good elements first. The songs. The music of the movie is very catchy. The songs are good, and there are three great ones. Science Fiction Double Feature, which is the opening song, which basically it sets the mood that this is a movie that's supposed to be paying tribute to old 50s B movies that were science fiction. Then there's Sweet Transvestite, and then there's Time Warp, which is honestly my favorite. The first time I ever heard Time Warp was at the midnight screenings where they had you dance to it, and that thing's been in my head for months. But the songs I think are really good. Let's talk about the actors. Barry Bostwick and Susan Sarandon are the two protagonists of the movie, and their performances are very over the top, and they basically overact, which I guess is kind of cool since this movie was trying to be a take or riff on 1950s science fiction movies. The characters themselves are just one-dimensional. They're honestly forgettable, but the side characters, Riff Raff, Magenta, Columbia, and Rocky, are memorable. Not so much character-wise, but in the way they look. Even if Rocky is basically there for female eye candy, and Columbia's voice can get very irritating at points. But, hey, I mean, they're more memorable than two main characters. But the guy who steals the show is Tim Curry. Tim Curry in this movie. What's the word I want to use for his performance? I guess the closest thing I can come up with is fascinating. Tim Curry gives a fascinating performance as Dr. Frankenfurter, the sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania. And that was stupid. Anyway, his performance is so bizarre so confusing that you are just fascinated watching him. Like, you have no idea what he's going to do next. The way he delivers his dialogue is absurdly entertaining. Like, I think if there's anything to pull from this movie in terms of like being memorable, it's definitely Dr. Frankenfurter. That's the one thing everyone talks about. Even before I saw Rocky Horror Picture Show, I knew of that character and was like, what the hell? The moment with him that really stood out to me in terms of this is a performance that is just so bizarre, you have no idea what's going to happen, is Janet and Brad go to bed. Dr. Frankenfurter dresses up as Brad, goes into Janet's bed and almost rapes her. And then Frankenfurter's like, oh, you know you enjoy it. And Janet's like, all right, but don't tell Brad. And then he does the exact same thing to Brad, but Dr. Frankenfurter's dressed as Janet. So, like... And even Brad, this is what gets me. Brad goes, after Dr. Frankenfurter tells Brad, oh, come on, you know you want it. Brad is willing to go, okay, but just don't tell Janet. The follow-up to the part with Brad, I think is hysterical in my opinion. Janet finds out that Brad had gay sex with Dr. Frankenfurter through, like, one of the mansion's TV monitors, and it's just like Dr. Frankenfurter's in bed, just chilling, and Brad's smoking a cigarette. And every time I see that, I just laugh my ass off. Like, it is just, that image is just so hysterical in my opinion. But then I get really mad at Janet for being like, oh, Brad, how could you? And I'm like, when do you get to have a moral high ground? You were the one, you had sex with Dr. Frankenfurter first. At what point do you have standards with Brad having gay sex with Dr. Frankenfurter? Let the man have his gay sex, even if it's with an alien. Yeah, that's another thing. Dr. Frankenfurter, Riff Raff, Magenta, Columbia, and Rocky. Well, no, maybe not Rocky. They're all aliens from the planet of Transylvania. And this is going to be a segue into what doesn't work about the movie. The plot. As I mentioned when trying to describe it, the plot literally makes no sense. However, I'm sure that most people who watch this movie are through the midnight screening, so chances are they're not really going to care about the plot, but it is just something that has to be addressed, that it literally, if you try to watch this movie on your own, as a movie and not an experience with a crowd of people, it makes no goddamn sense. You're like, what's going on? Why are the entourage of Frankenfurter celebrating? What's going on? Like, you're going to ask a lot of questions if you try to watch this movie on your own. And then another problem is that there are moments, not just in plot, but there are select moments in the movie that literally make no sense. There's like one, Brad finds out that Rocky and Janet were basically sleeping together. There's a point like, where each of the characters say their name, like, Janet, Brad, Rocky! And it's basically like the dinner scene in Shrek 2. And for some reason, they do that 2 more times. And you're like, why did you play that almost identical clip 2 extra times? That's weird, but I don't know. Like, Rocky Horror Picture Show is a very weird movie to describe. Okay, I'll say this. It's a bad movie to watch if you're alone. If you were to watch this as an actual movie, trying to get into the plot and the characters, you're wasting your time. I mean, there are entertaining moments, like the songs and some of the music, and Tim Curry's fascinating performance. I'm just going to keep using that word with him. So, I would say, at home alone, you gotta watch this at your own risk. Like, I feel like because it has so many bizarre moments, it becomes less accessible for general people. Like, so I see a lot of people, if you see this for the first time, you're going to have a difficult time getting into it, probably. But if you were to go see this at midnight with a bunch of people who are into this as well, dressed as the characters, then it's a blast. It's a blast that's worth seeing in your lifetime, but only at the midnight screenings. Just watch it at your own risk if you were to watch it at home alone. But, I mean, Rocky Horror Picture Show, I guess for me personally, like, that's the advice I'm giving to people. For me personally, I kind of like it. I mean, it does have its moments, but if I were to ever see this movie again, it would be at the midnight screenings, or if I were to ever see it at home, it would be with a bunch of people drunk, and we'd have to really be into it. So that's the only time I've ever watched it again. I will never watch this movie again alone, but with a group of people, sober or drunk, count me in, because those midnight screenings are awesome. And I gotta say, it's got to be really fun to be a shadow cast member on that show, because I don't know, it seems like a lot of fun. I remember when I saw this, the first time I ever saw the midnight screening at all was the shadow cast was Slugs and Fishnets, the UC Santa Cruz Rocky Horror Picture Show shadow cast. And it just looks like a lot of fun to be in that cast. I don't know, just a random thought. The review's done. That's my review for the Rocky Horror Picture Show and all of my retro reviews for Halloween week. I'm going to be taking a small break from Retro Wednesday reviews, but I'll be back on November 18th to take care of some unfinished business in a galaxy far, far away. But until then, leave a comment and tell me what you thought of this movie if you've seen it. Have you been to the midnight screenings? What did you think? Like, subscribe, share me with your friends. Don't forget to check out my official website, therealmrrobinson.com. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, and Periscope. And this is The Real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one.